So a couple of months ago, I was lurking around a Malaysian urbanite forum. Now, this is basically a forum where we urbanites get together and discuss public matters. And there was this issue of this young lady. I think she was a Malaysian Chinese young lady. I assume so because the screenshots were of SMSs in Chinese, right? And basically, what happened was that it was a public holiday, but her boss sent her some tasks to be completed on that day, right? Even though it's a public holiday. And she said, is it okay if I do it tomorrow, before, I'll give it to you before lunch tomorrow, which seems reasonable, right? And the boss said, but you are working from home, what? Why can't you do it by today? You are working from home. So, I want to see it by tonight. So it's like, basically, that girl was really, really unhappy, and she was basically pouring out her grievances on the public forum. And understandably, because a public holiday is a day when you actually have the chance to spend time with your family. Now, you could be living under the same roof as them, but chances are you don't see much of them if you're working a regular white collar job or any other job for that matter, right? So anyway, public holiday, is basically for most of us is a day we reserve for our families, right? We spend time with our families because that's the only time, and the weekends. Those are the only times when we actually can spend time with them. And there was this guy. I wouldn't call him a yuppie because he looked to be about in his late 30s or early 40s. What do you call something of a middle between a millennial and a boomer? I'm not sure what term that is for someone who's between a millennial and a boomer. This guy, this specky guy who looks like a typical, middle management type. And I'm sorry, I'm not putting down anybody who wears specs here. He goes like on the forum. He goes like, "Oh, actually, in this pandemic times, but we are now facing an employment crisis, and everybody is struggling to get a job. So you should be grateful to your employer. People should be grateful to their employer. Must see things from the employer's point of view. If the boss wants you to do work on a public holiday, you should cooperate. Must see things from the employer's point of view." And I assume that guy, was an employer himself. But you know what? Fuck that. In fact, I think I responded to him. I said, I told him like, fuck off, bro. Like you're not, it's kind of ironic. I told him, I wish I could find the thread of that forum, but I can't. I'll put a link of the article in the description box. It's ironic to see a capitalist dictator, and yes, I'm not using the word dictator flippantly, yeah? A capitalist dictator moralizing about ethics, when ethics is the last thing on the capitalist dictator's mind when things are going well, right? So, what do I mean by this? Well, you say that your employees ought to be grateful that you give them a job and you're not sacking them, right? But ask yourself this: are you grateful to your employees that they are working for you? I don't think so. So, could you do without your employees? If all your employees decided to vote with their feet, could you do without them? Right? And second of all, you who insists that your employees ought to have feelings of gratitude towards their employer, do you remember all of your employees' birthdays? Do you know whether they have children or whether they're single or whether they're married? Have you cared to get to know about their personal lives? Well, perhaps, of course, personal life is something you keep private, but have you ever cared to care about your employee beyond regarding your employee as simply a workhorse to make money, a money-making commodity, right? Do you remember the birthdays of every one of your employees? Do you visit your employees when they're sick in the hospital? No, you just tell them, get better soon, so that, and make sure you submit your MC to me, when, by next time when you get back to work. So, little Napoleon, you yourself have no feeling of fraternal obligation to your employees. How dare you demand that of them? How dare you demand that your employees should feel a sense of gratitude to you simply because you're not firing them? Because let me tell you something, you need your employees as much as they need the job, right? And let's put it this way. If I go to a cafe, right, or a restaurant, right, can I say to the waitress, I'm paying for the money that I pay, when I foot the bill, when I pay the bill, is going to your salary. You should be grateful to me and thus you should give me a massage. Can I say to the waiter, I'm providing you with a means of employment, so you should be grateful to me and thus you should massage my feet, right? No. I have no right to services which I have not paid for, and you have no right, you capitalist dictator, you have no right to services which you have not paid for. That would be theft, wouldn't it? Strictly speaking. To take something or get a free service without paying, right? You have no need to feel grateful to your employer for giving you a job, yeah? He or she did not give you the job out of the goodness of his or her heart, but because he or she thought that you would be productive, you would be useful in raising the revenue of the company, and by extension, raising his or her own salary, right? Increasing the size of his or her own paycheck so that he or she could get a nicer car the next year, right? It has nothing to do with gratitude, right? Your employer is not your friend. Your employees are not your friends, right? Gratitude has nothing to do with it. The only service that you're obligated to provide for your employer is what you have stipulated on your employment contract. Nothing less, nothing more, right? Now, perhaps if the employer had asked, would you mind helping me out with this task instead of just demanding it as if he has a right to it, right? And if he had asked nicely and said, you know what, I'll buy you a coffee next time, okay, or I'll buy you lunch if you can help me, I don't think that this lady would have had a problem with helping him or her out. You see, the thing is, he or she demanded it on the lady's public holiday as if he or she had a right to it, as if the boss had a right to it. The audacity you see in some of these little Napoleons, to simply assume that people would just bend over backwards for them because they're hanging the sword of Damocles over their head. The sword of Damocles meaning the fear of losing their job, right? And that is why I always say, communism is when the dictators control the public sector, and capitalism is when they control the private sector, right? A communist dictator can take you to a gulag and shoot you in a corner or cut off your head. If we're talking about the Emperor of China. The Emperor of China can have your head cut off. The capitalist dictator can starve you to death, right? The free market dictator kills you, but it's a slow, long, drawn out process of starving to death or dying of, in the case of America, dying of medical bills, that you cannot pay. I mean, basically dying of whatever condition you may have, right? So, because you can't afford medical bills. So, the thing is, your boss has no right to your personal time because he or she is not your friend, right? If you leave the company, he or she will not feel any sentimentality at your loss, unless of course you were a productive employee, who increased the revenue of the company. He or she does not give a hoot if you walk away, because he or she is not employing you out of the goodness of their heart, right? And that's why I say that there is no true freedom under the free market capitalism, because free market capitalism, a laissez-faire, as pointed out by Adam Smith. Now, Adam Smith was you have to remember, was not an economist. He did not invent the laissez-faire system. In fact, he just diagnosed it, because you must remember that Smith was a moral philosopher, right? And Smith, what many of these laissez-faire free market people will not tell you is that Smith believed that checks and balances should be maintained to prevent any abuse of power, of people in power, And you have these GOP people like Thomas Sowell, and I quote the American right-wing economist Thomas Sowell. He said, there are no dead-end jobs. The only the welfare state is creating dead-end people. So what he was implying was that basically there's no such thing as a dead-end job. Life is fair, but the only problem is with people's attitude. People don't want to work. People are lazy. People have been brainwashed by, evil, woke Marxists, People have been brainwashed by the evil woke mob. But I can tell you this, it is not the evil woke mob, like myself, or Kavanagh, or Salari, or Hakim, or any other left-wing socialist YouTuber who is brainwashing the young people into becoming lazy bums, or basically going their own way and not contributing to the economy. It is ironically the very people who complain about dead-end workers who are creating these dead-end workers, or rather creating the problem. These people are creating the problem, and they are too myopic to even see it, right? Instead of ever, taking their head out of their ass and trying to see things from the point of view of the working class, they condescendingly tell the working class that, it's you that's the problem. It's not the system that's the problem. The system that basically puts all the power into the hands of few. Because let's be real here. Unless we're talking about very, very progressive societies, perhaps like in some Scandinavian countries, very few capitalist countries have a thing called workplace democracy, because most workplaces are not democracies. Most workplaces are dictatorships. If you enter a workplace, at least if you're a man, the way you dress, the way you act, what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, is tightly regulated by corporate company protocol, right? And, you always have to walk on eggshells to avoid pissing off the wrong people, and you have to kiss up to the right people. So really, the corporate world is a dictatorship in itself, but it's a private sector dictatorship. And the reason, and even though labor laws do exist, in no small part due to the efforts of left-wing socialists, not right-wing bureaucrats like Sowell and Co., left-wing socialists like myself and Hakim and Kavanagh. Labor laws exist because of people like us. Still, there are various loopholes that employers can use if they happen to not like you, if you happen to get on the bad side of the dictator, right? And, if you happen, if let's say your enemy at the office, someone who hates you, to whom the feeling is mutual, of course, but happens to be promoted over you as your manager, you are screwed if he or she becomes a dictator over you. I'm sure it's happened to some of us. It's happened to me before, I'll admit, but I'm not going to get into details here. And even if they can't sack you, they can make life really, really, really unbearable for you until you feel compelled to quit. They can really, really make your life a living hell until you feel compelled to walk away, right? So no, there is no such thing as true job security. Now, the only way you'll be truly secure at a job is if you equip yourself with skills, right? Now, I'm a freelance English teacher. First of all, I want to say that it's not, I'm not talking about the school when I say that, I've gotten on the wrong side of certain managers before because of my sharp tongue and big mouth. But I worked great. I worked very well with my academic directors and I worked very well with students. But there are certain aspects of school that I don't like, right? It's very tightly regulated. You're not even allowed to talk like an adult. I mean, I can't use certain words on my YouTube channel if I'm still teaching at a school, because students do watch this channel from time to time, and parents do watch this channel from time to time as well. So I have to keep my language clean as long as I'm working at a school, right? So another reason I don't like it is because schools are extremely political places, and there are like factions of teachers here, factions of teachers there. There's tensions between factions. It's not a place where you can simply go and teach, impart your knowledge to people and just, and go home after that. It's not that simple. It's a very political place. And another reason why I don't like it, well, not that I don't like it, I did enjoy my time teaching at the international school. Another reason, and this is a universal issue, is that schools are becoming, and pardon me for saying this, very, very gynocentric. As a male teacher, you just feel a bit alienated. I'm not going to go into depth as to what I mean by that, but I think anybody who's taught at a school who happens to have XY chromosomes can relate to what I'm saying, right? You feel very alienated, and you feel sometimes that, boys are not allowed to be boys sometimes, and I'm going to go into that in another video, but this is not the video for it. The point is, I can walk away from working for a boss because I have equipped myself with necessary skills. I can teach English as a second language, English as a first language, IELTS, the International English Language Testing for Adults system. I can teach all of those. So I'm quite secure in myself. And I really do agree with the adage that knowledge is power, The reason why people don't have the guts to walk away from a toxic workplace or a bullying boss is, I'm sorry to say, complacency. Now, you get comfortable working a certain routine in an office, and you assume that things are never going to go south. You assume that things are always going to be spick and span, nice and spiffy, right, with your employer, right? But you never know. You never know if your employer could be a little Napoleon, like the employer in that article. You never know if someone who hates you might get promoted over you and makes it so bloody unbearable for you, like by giving you the worst clients, the least support, and maybe posting you to the worst possible office to try and push you out indirectly, while giving themselves plausible deniability. You don't have true freedom, I suppose, working in a corporate setting, because you always have the sword of Damocles hanging over your head, the threat of losing your job. But if you work for yourself, if you are equipped with enough skills to do something of your own, or to make something of yourself without depending on a boss to give you a job, you are at no one's mercy. No one can push you around, right? And until workplaces become more democratic, until employers are willing to sit down and listen to their employees, until employers are willing to share power with their employees, I highly recommend that people with skills and talents take this route of self-sufficiency, self-employment. It's I'm not trying to shame you if, let's say, you have aging parents or you have sick parents and you're desperately working really hard to take care of them. I'm not shaming you, but if you have a choice, if you don't have to work for a boss and you can be self-sufficient, I highly recommend it. That's why I'm a freelance teacher. I don't work for any particular company, right? Being your own boss, you get to dictate your own terms, dress how you like, as long as you can deliver the service. The question is, can I get the grades for the students? Can I? I can? Okay, then I don't need to wear a tie, I don't need to wear a jacket, I don't need to dress like a corporate bee. It's not shaming you if you like that, but it's not my style. Yeah, I'm more of a liberal dresser rather than I'm not a conservative dresser, but that's not really the point. The thing is, not only do you get to dictate your own terms working for yourself, people who don't, you get to set boundaries as well. Now, I really think that lady, should have set boundaries with her employer. Sometimes you meet a manager who seems really, really nice and charming, and you think, oh, we get on very well, right? And you don't realize that this person is actually sussing you out. And they realize, and they might think that, oh, wow, this employee really likes me. Okay, so I guess I can push him or her around, and I can take liberties with him or her. I don't mean taking liberties as in taking sexual liberties. I mean taking liberties like in this case, trying my luck, seeing if I can get him or her to work on a public holiday. But if this lady had self-respect, right? She would, if she didn't have any aging parents to look after, she would walk away from this job. Because no job is worth sacrificing your dignity for, right? The thing is this. People, you do not owe your boss a damn thing beyond what is stipulated on your contract, right? The crux of the matter is that your boss did not hire you out of the goodness of his or her heart. He hired you because he or she thought you'd be useful. That is all, right? So you do not owe your boss any gratitude. At the same time, you should do an honest day's work, out of, it's really a matter of principle. But the thing is, you need to set boundaries, right? If you don't set boundaries, sometimes little Napoleons will push the limits, right? Like, I like all my students, okay? I assume none of them would cross boundaries, but just to be safe, I have a policy that states no texting me after 9 p.m. Now, for students who are going to take their exam, whose exam is just around the corner, I'm willing to make an exception to this policy. But there's a reason why the cutoff point to texting me for students and parents is 9 p.m. Because if I don't set boundaries, if I simply allow people to text me at any time and I entertain people at any time, I only have myself to blame, if people start to take advantage of me, right? So in order to prevent that, I set the cutoff point at 9 p.m. unless your exam is just around the corner. It's not that I want to be heartless, but my clients have to remember that my time is as valuable as theirs. My time is no less valuable than theirs. Your time is no less valuable than your employer's, right? What makes that boss think that his time is more valuable than his employees? Why is it he gets to enjoy a public holiday with his family, but then he expects his employee to drop everything and work on and just do that admin task for him on a public holiday without any overtime, right? Is he saying that his time is worth more than hers? Well, strictly speaking, of course, he earns more. But is he saying that, his employee is less deserving of spending quality time with her family than he is? So no, there is no need for you to be grateful. I've said this for like the 15th time in this video. There is no need for you to be grateful to your boss. Make yourself indispensable so that nobody will try to be funny with you, of course. But most important of all, equip yourself with a skill so that you will always have security, okay? And, until workplaces become more democratic and until employers are willing to be more transparent, hold themselves accountable to the masses of employees, and are willing to share power and share the blame for things that go wrong. They cannot blame smart, capable people. I'm not speaking of myself. It's not in my genes to boast. But they cannot blame it on smart, capable people. They cannot call smart, capable people deadbeats for walking away from a system, a dictatorial system, that puts all the cards into the hands of a few powerful tyrants, right? And if they find that they have to replace labor, if there's a labor shortage and they have to import people from other countries who happen to be less educated and less competent at doing certain jobs, the capitalist dictators only have themselves to blame.